Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank the SSE for allowing me this wonderful opportunity to present for you my Becoming Light, a comparative analysis of the attainment of the Tibetan Buddhist Rainbow Body with the Transfiguration, Resurrection, and Ascension of Jesus, the Assumption of his Mother Mary, and glowing orbs witnessed in conjunction with the UFO, UAP, phenomena. So what we're going to do is explore the research done by Father Francis V. Tizo, who detailed his investigation into the attainment of the rainbow body by Khenpo A. Chau, a Tibetan monk in 1998. Similarities are noted between the recorded accounts made by fellow monks who witnessed the transformation of the Khenpo and biblical passages concerning the transfiguration, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus, as well as the visionary experiences in the early 1800s of Anne Catherick Emmerich concerning the Assumption of Mother Mary. And we're also going to consider the possibility that some of the orbs of light witnessed in association with the UFO UAP phenomena could be intelligent light beings manifesting in our perceptual realm. So let's begin with the remarkable research done by Father Francis Tizo and the attainment of the rainbow body by Khenpo A. Chau. Here is the book that Father Tizo wrote, Rainbow Body and Resurrection, Spiritual Attainment, the Dissolution of the Material Body, and the Case of Khenpo A. Chau. Father Francis Tizo is quite a scholar. He is currently a Catholic priest serving in Italy, but he's a New Yorker. He was born in New York. He graduated with an AB in medieval studies from Cornell. He has a Master's of Divinity from Harvard and a doctorate from Columbia University and Union Theological Seminary. His specialization was Buddhist studies. Father Tizo speaks 10 languages, including Tibetan. For his dissertation, he translated several early biographies of the Tibetan yogi and poet Milarepa. He has led research expeditions and has traveled extensively in India, Nepal, Tibet, Thailand, Japan, and Bangladesh. And what is the rainbow body? Let's use Father Tizo's definition. The rainbow body is the shrinkage and disappearance of the human body within a short time after death, accompanied by paranormal phenomena, such as unusual emanations of light and altered atmospheric conditions in the locality of the deceased. There are various kinds of rainbow body, which correspond to different styles of previous practice, including 1, the complete disappearance of the body, sometimes hair and nails remain, and 2, just the shrinkage of the body. Sometimes this is caused by an interruption of the process, such as when the deceased body is touched by someone, and sometimes this shrinkage of the body can just be the result of a different type of practice technique and does not necessarily mean a lesser attainment. So let's look at the story now of Khenpo A. Chau. It was 1999, and Brother David Stendal Rast, who was a Benedictine monk, wondered how the rainbow body phenomena compared with the bodily resurrection of Jesus. Brother David knew that many Tibetans lived in Switzerland, so he asked a friend who also lived in Switzerland if he could inquire about what the local Tibetans knew about the rainbow body. 2 days later, he received word back from his friend telling him that a Tibetan monk had unexpectedly approached him and told him that his teacher had recently attained the rainbow body. Brother David is the spiritual teacher of Father Francis Tizo. So in the year 2000, Brother David asked Father Tizo if he was planning to travel to Tibet in the future. He found out Father Tizo was leaving that very day. So he asked him if he could go to Switzerland first and interview the Tibetan monk whose teacher attained the rainbow body. Despite the short notice, Father Tizo took a detour to Switzerland and thus began his research into the life and death of Khenpo A. Chau, the Gelugpa monk from Tibet who did attain his own rainbow body. Thanks to the Tibetan monk in Switzerland, Father Tizel learned the exact location of the village in Tibet where Khenpo had had his hermitage. Father Tizel traveled to that village and conducted interviews with eyewitnesses of the death of the Khenpo and many people who had known him and lived in the surrounding area. Father Tizel was able to read the accounts that were produced within months of the Khenpo's death. The following winter, in February of 2001, Father Tizel went to India and interviewed two young monks who had also been eyewitnesses to the phenomena surrounding the death of the Khenpo. And here he is. Here's a photo of Khenpo A Chau. He died at the age of 81 in 1998. He had been faithful to his purity of life, and he often spoke of the importance of cultivating compassion. He had the ability to teach even the roughest and toughest of types how to be a little gentler, a little more mindful. It was reported that Khenpo A Chau was able to pass through walls and fences without obstruction while he was still alive. Eyewitnesses reported that a few days before his death, a long flat rainbow appeared directly above his hut. He wasn't sick. There appeared to be nothing wrong with him, and he was reciting his mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum, over and over. Immediately after he died, all the appearances of his bodily aging, such as wrinkles, instantly disappeared. His face became youthful, like a young child, smooth and pinkish. His skin began to shine. Above his house, rainbows appeared for many days. Sometimes they pervaded the whole expanse of the sky. Just before dark, light similar to that of sun rays shone in the east for a long time. There were two lamas there who were with the Khenpo at the time of his death, and they were uncertain about what to do with his body. They saw it starting to glow. So they sent word off to a nearby monastery asking for guidance. The Nyingma master, who was head of the nearby monastery, told them, wrap the body in a yellow cloth. Don't look or touch at it for about 7 to 8 days. Day after day, the eyewitnesses observed Khenpo A Chau's body under the cloth becoming smaller and smaller. After about the 7th or 8th day, they removed the yellow cloth and no body remained. This process may have taken less time, but that is uncertain because they did not remove the cloth until the 7th or 8th day. During this time, the lamas as well as other lay people heard beautiful, mysterious music coming from the sky. Sometimes it sounded like a voice singing. Other times it sounded like instruments playing. The people smelled a fragrant perfume and no flies came near the body. A few individuals claimed that Khenpo A Chau appeared to them in visions and dreams, and one of Khenpo A Chau's students felt the Khenpo tugging on his shirt sleeve and telling him, practice well, meditate well, be attentive. So we're going to shift now to looking at some of the orbs experienced within the context of the UFO UAP phenomena. Now, this was the book, as I mentioned, that Father Tizel wrote. On the cover of his book is this painting. This painting is a portion of a mural from the Kelu Kang Temple, which is the serpent deity temple, also known as the Dalai Lama's secret temple in Lhasa, Tibet. These 5 men may be doing a form of meditative practice that is associated with the attainment of the rainbow body. According to Father Tizel, part of the rainbow body practice is to vocalize mantras, meditate on spheres of light, and visualize yourself as one of the various deities' bodhisattvas. There can be the existence of spontaneous emergence of spheres of light as well. And the Dalai Lama does do some of these rainbow body practices himself. Well, here's these 5 guys. They're doing their meditative practice, and you see above them orbs of light, and in them little rainbow body beings. And I'm wondering, could this be associated with the orbs of light that people see within the UFO UAP context? Well, unbelievably, I found this image that was put out in 2019 by Ryan Bledsoe about orbs that his family keeps seeing. And unbelievably, here we have the red orb, we have the blue orb, we have the light colored whitish orb, we have the yellowish orb, and we have the green orb, all here in this very picture. Well, this is important because Ryan Bledsoe is the son of Christopher Bledsoe. Christopher has had an amazing set of experiences, and I'm not going to go all into it here, but it starts out really with January 8th, 2007, Christopher Bledsoe and his oldest son, Chris Jr., not Ryan, but the older son, Chris Jr., and 3 of their work associates went down to the Cape Fear River in North Carolina to fish. Chris went off on his own and saw 3 large orange balls of liquid fire about the size of a school bus hovering close to the ground. Over 4 hours later, he returned to the other men, and he couldn't account for the time that had passed. He had no recollection of what had transpired during his missing time. The following day, he realized he was miraculously healed of his Crohn's disease. He has had many more unexplainable experiences over the years. He was a guest on Coast to Coast in March of this year, 2023. George Knapp said to him, "I guess we don't know what it or they really look like, do we? Because they assume any shape that doesn't scare us too much, I guess. Do you know what they really look like?" And Chris said, "I think their natural form is light, balls of light." And you can read about Chris's experience in his new book, UFO of God. While many spiritual traditions teach that our ultimate goal is to create or perfect our rainbow light body, each tradition has a different name for it. Egyptians call it the luminous body, the Ak or the crossed body. Taoists call it the diamond body. Those who attain it are called the immortals or the cloud walkers. In Hermetic literature, it's called the immortal body. Alchemists call it the stellar stone, the astral stone, or the philosopher's stone. In Christianity, they call it the transfigured body and the resurrection body. So there are many similarities between the origin story of Garib Dorji, who was the first human being to receive the transmissions of the rainbow body and the teachings from the realm of the Buddhas, and the biblical passage describing the life, transfiguration, resurrection, and ascension of Jesus, the Christian Savior, and the writings about the life of the Assumption of his mother, Mary. So in a far-off time, a king and his consort gave birth to a daughter named Kudharma. Sometimes I see her name as Sudharma. And when she grew older, Kudharma gave up her wealth and became a nun. She performed these spiritual practices associated with attaining purity of body, mind, and heart. Then she had a dream and was visited by a mysterious white-colored man who held a crystal lance and a crystal vase. Well, there are many images of the Blessed Virgin Mary and her Annunciation. In these images, many times, there is a white angel, often referred to as the angel Gabriel, who's holding a scepter. And here we have Mary in the room with a lily that is a symbol of her purity. Well, soon, Kudharma found that she was pregnant. As you know, Mary had her virgin birth as well. Kudharma wondered, how can this be? In her 10th month, a son with no father was born out of her right side. Because she was consumed by shame in her confused state of mind, she tossed the baby into an ash pit. Lights and sounds immediately began to emanate from the ash pit. After 3 days, she saw that the child had suffered no harm. Therefore, she cleaned the baby and accepted him as being a holy body or a man who cannot die. Then, after 7 years, the child asked permission to visit the great teachers of the kingdom to discuss the Dharma, or the sacred teachings. His mother was reluctant to let him go, but finally allowed him to visit the king, who was his grandfather, and the 500 priests in the great temple. When the child visited the grandfather, he was respectful, but he pointed out that he, in fact, was the king's spiritual superior. And the priests were unable to confound the child, and they expressed their veneration for him. If you might remember, Jesus also was found in a temple when he was 12 years old, talking to the priests and letting them know he knew the teachings quite well. So Garib Dorji mastered all the teachings of the previous Buddhas, including the Rainbow Body teachings. Together with the help of two dakinis, or spiritual beings, he compiled and indexed the sacred texts over a 3-year period. He committed to protect the teachings and establish them on earth. Eventually, years later, Padme Sambhava received the Rainbow Body teachings, brought them to Tibet, and founded the Nyingma, meaning the ancient school of Tibetan Buddhism. This is the oldest of the 4 major traditions of Tibetan Buddhism. And this great perfection is the central focus of the Nyingma school. It is seen by this school as the supreme practice. Through the Nyingma practice, from the beginning until today, it is said that there have been many practitioners who have achieved this rainbow body. So let's look a little closely now at more of the light body events in the life of Jesus. Well, he had a transfiguration himself. And Father Tizos said that there are signs that a person is a highly advanced spiritual being even before they die, including that the person may radiate light while they're still alive. Well, that happened to Jesus when he went to the Mount and transfigured before his apostles, Peter, James, and John. And with Jesus, during that transfiguration experience, there were also Elijah and Moses. And interestingly, each of those people may have achieved their own light bodies as well. And then, of course, there's the resurrection of Jesus. Jesus was crucified and died. 3 days later, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb, and she saw that the rock had been rolled away and that the tomb was empty. She ran back and she got Simon Peter and John, and they all came and saw that Jesus, in fact, wasn't there. Peter and John left, and Mary was still there weeping. And then she saw these 2 angels there where the body used to be. And eventually, Jesus showed up, and Mary didn't recognize him. Mary eventually realized it was Jesus, and Jesus said to her, "Touch me not, for I have not yet ascended to my Father." Remember that in Khenpo A. Chow's experience, the Nyingma master told the lamas, "Don't touch the body." So here Jesus is saying to Mary, "Touch me not, for I am not yet ascended to my Father." And Mary went back and told the disciples what had happened. And then Jesus appeared to them in a closed room. All of a sudden, he appeared and talked with the disciples at that point. Thomas, the doubting Thomas, he wasn't there. He didn't believe that Jesus really showed up. And he said, "Well, for that, I'm going to have to touch him, put my hands in his sores and in his wounds." And after 8 days, Jesus shows up again and Thomas touches him. Well, that's really interesting. It was after 8 days, because that was the length of time, too, that Khenpo A. Chow needed to transform his body into light. And then there's the ascension of Jesus, of course, in a cloud. And if I may briefly mention that Kevin Knuth does this wonderful work. He is a professor at SUNY Albany, and he talks about the plasma sheath surrounding some of these craft and some of these photos of UAP. And I often wonder if this cloud that is associated in these more religious texts could be related to this plasma sheath that Kevin Knuth is now talking about. Jesus is also often seen riding around in some kind of orbish kind of cloudy thing. And now quickly to the Virgin Mary. There's a wonderful book, and it's called The Life of the Blessed Virgin Mary, from the Visions of Venerable Anne Catherine Emmerich. She was born in 1774. She became a nun. She was simply educated, but she could understand the Mass in Latin from the very first time she went. She really didn't eat hardly anything. She subsisted for a long time on water and the Holy Eucharist, a little piece of bread. She actually had the stigmata of Jesus, which are the wounds that he had. And that's why you see in this image here, her head is bandaged because it was bleeding all the time. There was a rumor that her body was stolen after she died, and her grave was opened 6 weeks later, and her body was found to be fresh without any sign of corruption. She's one of those incorrupt saints, one of those people whose bodies don't decay. That might be related to attaining a body of light eventually. And Anne Catherine Emmerich had these visions that a priest would come and write down. And in her vision, she said she was actually with Mary during a lot of her life, and actually with Jesus during a lot of his life as well. And so she says she was there when Mary was dying, and she called all the apostles to her. Not all of them were able to show up. And then Anne Catherine Emmerich said she had a wonderfully moving vision. The ceiling of the ladies' room disappeared, and she saw in the sky the heavenly Jerusalem appeared. There were two radiant clouds of light, those are those clouds, sank down, out of which appeared the faces of many angels. And then between these clouds, a path of light poured down upon Mary, and she stretched out her arms toward it in infinite longing. Her body, all wrapped up, rose so high above her couch that one could see right under it. Her body then lifted up and became like a little figure of infinitely pure light. Her soul left her body, that then sank down. But then a few days later, Anne Catherine Emmerich saw that when Mary's body had been put in the tomb, there was another shaft of light came down, and she saw the soul of the Blessed Virgin, which had been following the appearance of our Lord, pass in front of him and float down into the tomb. Then she saw the soul united to Mary's transfigured body rise out of the tomb far brighter and clearer and go back into the heavenly Jerusalem with Jesus. So here's a person who has a vision of Mary coming back, her soul coming back, the body being light, and then the body ascending with the soul back into heaven. And so at this special time when we're being very much open to looking at the nature of reality, I think I want to put into the mix some of these stories that is it potentially humanity's evolutionary path to attain a body of light, as some of the greatest religious traditions have been trying to show us is possible? And did that happen recently in 1998? And is it continuing that Khenpo Chao did achieve this event? Could we achieve it too? And maybe are some of these orbs that many people are seeing now actually beings themselves coming in their light bodies? I don't know, but I think it's worth thinking about. Here are my references. Here's my contact information. And so I'll send out to all here my blessings as you progress on your own path to becoming light. Thank you so much.